Welcome everybody to Listen Up Long Island podcast number 4. It's the 4th one. We have a very special podcast. We got the Roosters here, all right? And I want you to know something. The Roosters, these are gigging true blue musicians, okay? And it's rare that you get somebody on your podcast who's gigging the whole way through, you know? And that's something that sticks out to me. These people have fantastic music, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But how about we start the show with how many gigs you guys have last year?
We do a lot of gigs together, and lots and lots of gigs together, so I can't speak on his number, but every year I do a total of what my gigs are. Last year was 215 gigs, and the year before that it was 199, and before that was like 166. So at this trajectory I'll have about 300 by this year. But I did burn myself out, so 215 I think is too much. But yeah, that's how I make a living. That's the job for 7 years now. It's if you're not gigging that much, you can't really afford to live. Really.
That's right.
So Tom, full-time gigging musician, and Dave, the other counterpart of the Mr. Rooster team. So, how about you, man? What's your gigging life like? And
I play every week. I host a jam on Wednesdays out in Patchogue, which I love. That's actually, that's where Tom and I met. Mm-hmm. And I also, I teach and stuff as well. I'm teaching a couple students over at Nassau this semester.
And Dave's students are now teachers, so he has a pedigree of...
That's right.
Yeah, Dave's an excellent music educator if anybody needs
lineage.
Lessons. Yeah.
Lessons? Hit up Dave on Instagram.
Professor for everything.
We'll drop it.
Right here.
Yeah.
You guys just dropped a new single. Shout out to 3-Step Process.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Pretty amazing how you guys harmonize and work together. It seems like you have some sort of timelessness, I would say, to your music where, whether it's, 50 years, 100 years down the road, I think people will still be listening to your music. So
Very kind of you to say.
You're also into like VHS tapes and stuff like that. So maybe speak about the timelessness of music.
Sure.
Where does that come from?
So, just as far as from a production standpoint, because a lot of timelessness I think comes from organic instruments. Like if you listen to what's popular, they always say what's great about a decade is what sucks about the decade. You go back and listen to it and you're like, those big wet snare drums from the 80s, like it's fun, but there's a lot of great music that suffers from the production of the time. So what we do is our recording technique is all just, there's no auto-tune, there's no beat grid, there's no quantization, it's all just performance. It's all just microphones capturing. There's a Wurlitzer, I have a Wurlitzer. There's a B3, I have a B3. So
a little piano.
Little piano, I have a little tiny piano, that's on 3-Step Process, so it's all live.
61 key.
61.
Upright piano.
Yeah, it's this little...
It's adorable.
It is. So what part of what makes it timeless, if, that's your word, which I appreciate, is the fact that you listen to it and it sounds like real people playing real instruments.
Yes.
Versus like when you hear something that's very produced, even the harmonies you hear in modern pop music, a lot of times are just like drawn on, like it's a vocoded. They just copy and paste it up a third. Right. And that's not what we do. We do the harmonies live.
Yeah. 3-Step Process is both of us live.
Yeah.
We saw it, yeah.
Well, and that's how we record too.
Yeah.
We, the Beatles. Obviously, we're massive Beatle fans. So when they recorded, because they were limited by their tracks, so you hear it'll be like them doing "Think for Yourself," the overdubs, and you hear the three of them harmonizing. You're like, that's the sound. Like you can't. The Bee Gees, the three of them would stand around one microphone and go in, and they all knew. Like I always thought it was like this big lush choir of like studio musicians on Bee Gees records, but it's just them. So we've been playing together for 6 years, so that blend happened over time. So when it comes time to recording it, we don't want to get in the way. We want that to be what we capture. So if it sounds like us here, we want it to sound like us in the studio. Right. And then, even still, like, there's this, we like, Robert Hunter and these lyricists who talk about, like, Americana stuff. But, like, lyrics that aren't contemporary lyrics.
Yeah, there's not really any clues in the lyrics as to when it came out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like there's a lot of hyper-local or specific references in songs nowadays, especially like popular music where they talk about what's going on. And, you know, we want to be an escape from all of that.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
So we sing about dumb stuff instead.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
don't
stuff-
write like typical love songs and stuff, or is it like in there but it's hidden? and
It's
you have
in
to,
there, but it's encoded. You'd never know. It
Yeah.
means a lot of it means stuff to us, but it's like we enjoy the vagueness.
Yeah.
You know.
Could you decode something from a song for us now?
Okay.
Maybe some hidden Rooster lore.
Okay.
What do we got?
Sure. How
So-
about "And You'll Never Leave"?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So like they're "You'll Never Leave" is basically just about Long Island, but like the lyrics like
Palm trees from a lender. So we have a friend.
Yeah.
So we out at Cabana. We play it in Long Beach at Cabana. And Bob Johnson, the owner there, is a good friend of ours. And he in the summer, just for sound protection, because the neighbors complain a lot, orders these massive palm trees. So the whole parking lot turns into like a jungle.
I've seen that in
Yeah.
summertime in the
Yeah,
outdoor section.
So
Yeah.
palm trees from a lender, got to
have-
give them back in late September, is about that.
and I just thought that's like a very Long Island thing. It's like we're gonna order some palm trees and put them up. They're
Everyone
not
on Long
local
Island,
to the area.
not at
but
all. Yeah, people come to visit. They're like, "What the hell are with the palm trees?" I'm like, "You gotta let it go."
We just put them there.
Yeah.
We like them.
Yeah,
We like to look at them.
yeah. But that whole song is about stuff like that.
Yeah,
You know, about pop top hockey with the local disc jockey. There's a local DJ who comes to the
Barbecue jam
every
yeah,
Wednesday.
Every Wednesday. Just
Yeah,
hanging out, drinking with the local DJ.
yeah,
You know,
Interesting.
it all means stuff to us.
yeah.
And you guys are, good old Long Island boys, right? Born and
We
raised
Absolutely.
out
South
here.
Shore trash.
Yeah,
That's right,
yeah.
that's right.
Blacktop bebop, hanging out in parking lots.
That's what we do growing up. Yeah, you drink in parking lots and in football fields and stuff like that.
That's right.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The Long Island way. So I'm curious, you guys been around the Long Island scene here, but then you've also done some playing outside.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've done your fair share of touring in South Carolina, Dog. I guess we'll get into that
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what do you guys think are like, the great things about Long Island, and then what are the things that you think maybe Long Island could learn from, like, other music scenes in other places?
So two things right off the top of my head. One is playing on Long Island is like training at a high altitude where nobody really cares. I mean, I don't want to say that in
Yeah.
like a ultra cynical way, but like these day gigs when you play 200 plus times a year, you're doing a lot of Tuesday afternoons, a lot of stuff like that. Like I said, I was going to get picked up one tonight. It's covering like a bingo shift. So those can get like real soul deadening after a while,
Right.
especially when people don't pay attention. So the moment you leave Long Island, at least in our experience, people have stages, people care. And so when you're playing so much to people that don't give you the time of day, we call it playing handball against a curtain. You send all that energy to somebody and then nothing.
Dead into
So that's on the album we did at the end of My Dog. It's like that was me playing it live and then nobody responding because that's what it's like.
I heard
Yeah.
that.
It's what it can be like sometimes.
Yeah.
So check out their single "My Dog," which they actually recorded here, and at the end of that, what they're referring to is at the end of the song, it cuts from like the studio recording into like a live performance. Was it the two of you?
It was actually just me,
It was
yeah.
just
Yeah.
you. And then at the end, like you just hear all this like background chit chat. I assume playing some restaurant or something.
Yeah.
and then you just hear Tom like, "That's my new song." And then it's just like no one, like no claps.
Yeah.
It's just like, but you can tell he's playing
Yeah,
for people. And
it's
I've
like-
had that same,
Of course you have,
experience
yeah.
game, but
So when you leave the island, like when we go to the Carolinas, for example, everyone's always like, "Whoa, y'all are from New York," and of course, there's 35 people from Long Island that are in
Everywhere,
the crowd.
yeah.
Everyone's from Long Island everywhere you go.
We
But
send
there's
our
just a
folks all
general
over the
level of
country.
appreciation we find that when you leave Long Island, and even still, we played at the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, and like there's all these bands like the Stray Cats and Twisted Sister, and even like New York bands, the Strokes, and all these bands didn't make it on Long Island or in New York. They all like were here. They were getting shit on, and then they had popularity in the UK, and then they toured in the UK, and then returned as heroes. So it's never really been easy to break on Long Island. It
No.
turns out.
Yeah, but the amount in terms of just being a gigging musician, like the amount of opportunities to play music places is ridiculous here compared to other places.
That's how you make a living. In fact, I lived in Nashville,
yeah.
I lived in Boston, I lived in a bunch of places, and the best living if you want to be a gigging musician definitely is Long Island.
Yeah, because in other places it's either hyper competitive, somewhere like
Nashville.
Or there's just not the amount, like sheer volume of. You could book yourself every night, like as Tom does, you know.
I have to give myself Mondays off, otherwise I'll burn out.
Amazing, man. So can you repeat that statement one time, right? For musicians out there that are hungry to make it full time.
Give yourself time off. You have to leave a day off.
But not even that, man. So you lived in Boston, you lived in Nashville, you lived in like all these places historically known for making a living as a gig musician, but the place where there's the most opportunity
is Long Island.
Long Island. Who would have thought?
But you get it's this catch-22 because you don't really get the appreciation for it. At least at this time. Since COVID, things have changed. It used to be like this, hey, we're all having fun, we all like the same music, I guess, right? And then something happened during COVID and everyone came out really angry and uninterested. I mean, again, these are generalizations, but
I've noticed it.
Yeah.
It seems like the soul of the average person took a bit of a beating.
Things feel different now.
Yeah, I mean, I had a dude at a gig recently, he's probably like 21, and I finished playing. This group of dudes, instead of clapping, they just gave me like a...
That's hilarious.
So I don't think they know much.
They don't know that you're supposed to clap.
Yeah.
They missed those formative years because they were in lockdown.
That's what it was, dude, when you had the mask on. No.
It's true. Having masks on also allowed us to know that we're deaf. Like, I read lips most of the time.
Yep, it made me realize how much I read lips. Yep.
Yeah.
From just playing music and what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. And I need ear protection, obviously. But yeah, from what was I gonna say? Long Island, definitely. I mean, anywhere like the beach town. Once you so you have to break in, to these Patchogue and Fire Island and Long Beach and Huntington, Farmingdale, whatever. They all have their own scenes. And once you're in, you can get and they give you the thumbs up, like you can get all the work you want.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can do like I've done, especially this past winter. Like I did triples, 3 gigs a day sometimes. Now that I'm playing with the band more often and with Dave more often, saves my voice more. So you got to make sure, like I get cameras shoved down my throat every 6 months because of singing too much. So you do have to watch the burnout. That's a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you mitigate that, man? Because I know sometimes I just have like Thursday, Friday, Saturday gig, and like my voice is just toast by Sunday.
So everything comes down in key. Like everything gets transposed. So Tuesday we're in the original key. By Sunday we're a fourth down. That's the way it goes. Like everything just gets lower and lower each day.
And what does that do? Just makes it easier?
Makes it easier to sing, yeah. The lower it is to sing. Also, I do a lot of, like, half of my set is piano, too. I do these instrumental piano gigs, which really, if I notice the room isn't paying attention, or at least not, like, I say paying attention is, like, the wrong thing. Like, if it's just supposed to be background, that's different. Right. And I like doing piano sets where it's just in the background, because you're not tasked with keeping the energy of the room.
Right.
Versus, we played a surprise wedding, which was a surprise to the band. So we had a trio, and they're like, oh, by the way, this is a wedding. It's like, okay, well, now you want us to keep a dance floor. That's a totally different requirement than wanting us to just
play some background music, right?
Yeah. So that's how I feel when it comes to the surprise wedding. So when it's a solo gig and you're expected to keep the room, it's a little more insulting, I guess, when you get no response. But when you're hired to just be the background, it's amazing because I'm like, I'm just gonna.
Right, you just sit there and play whatever you want, and you can do more instrumental stuff too. Like there's less of a requirement to
saves the voice.
Sing,
and it's not like we crave the attention, like we must get applause, otherwise like we hate you. It's just like a PSA. Like the musicians are human beings, and like when they finish a song, it's good to in any situation, it's good to clap.
But just we want to know what works. We do we'll do like if you're a comedian, and you're working out a set, you base it on like, oh, what did the crowd respond to? Not this, but this. Right. So it's like if they hand it out like on those like just don't laugh at the comedian, but on the way out, make sure you tell him he was really funny. Like that doesn't help him at all.
That's what it was. Yeah.
So like if we do like a bluegrass run of songs and people pop, we're like, oh, okay, we got bluegrass fans. If you do like hip hop and then they pop,
and that's the other thing about being able to play, every night is like you have to be good. Like you have to be willing to read the room and not only just play what you feel like playing maybe in every moment. Like you have to do you have a task to complete. You have to entertain the crowd. Mm-hmm. Right. So often we go in and people are like, what are you going to play? And we're like, I don't know. We're going to get on stage and then we're going to like look around the room and be like,
Feel it out.
classic rock. Look at that guy over there.
Yeah, our fans are dads that play guitar.
Yeah, and they want to ask us about our pedals, which we love.
They really want to tell us about their guitars.
Right.
Which is great, but so those guys are all classic rock fans. It's like Clapton, Van Halen, it's like we got those guys.
Right.
You know, but then when people come up, they're like, do you know country? It's like, not so much.
So say the two of you are playing. You guys play as duos sometimes?
All the time, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
As Rooster though, or sometimes you just play
Well,
like.
we always called it Tom and Dave.
Yeah.
But depending on the
It took a lot of deliberation to come up with that name.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Tom and Dave.
Tom and Dave, yeah. But I'm not even joking.
Well,
but
let's hear about it.
no, well, so we also have like depending on the gig. There's like, for example, there's this group called Hunter Root out of Philly or Pennsylvania, and they're awesome. And they're coming through. We're opening up for them in March at Industry, but they wanted Mr. Rooster, but not the band. So like he wanted the two of us because we have like my loop-based act, and then with Dave. So that gig will be booked as Mr. Rooster Duo for like marketing reasons.
Right.
But if like we were at Cabana last week. It's just the two. That's not like there's like work gigs and then like I don't know what you call like passion gigs, I guess.
Yeah.
One of them is like a paycheck and one of them is like progress.
Right. I want to talk about that actually. I
Sure.
want to hear both your weigh-ins because there's definitely this dichotomy for gigging musicians where one of them is like I'm doing this to pay rent, and the other one is for the long-term appeal of making it in a grander sense, right? So there's the kind of short-term gigs, and then there's the kind of long-term establishing yourself in your original music sense. So can you guys talk about that and how you balance that?
Well, it's probably the hardest part of all of this so far because they're parallel circuits. So like if you're making gigs playing in bars, then the people who playing original music have no idea who you are. And we've run into that, especially because we changed our band name. So people have no idea who we are, at least local, like our contemporaries and stuff, because we just sort of hopped into the scene. We weren't like this band, Mr. Rooster, 6 years ago. We were just this, I was playing gigs and I started bringing people along to play gigs with me. So it was this totally parallel circuit. So then, and those are all free. So all my friends can come see me 6 days a week for free, and now I got to sell tickets.
Right.
So I can't do that. So how do I mitigate that? Is I play everywhere else. I play in Long Beach, I play in the city, I'll play in Huntington or out in Southold or wherever, because you can't do the same places too often. I still have to make a living, so I have to play these work gigs, but I can't oversaturate a single market.
I see.
So if we're playing, like we have our festival in Heckscher that we do every year. So there was no band gig anywhere near Suffolk County for the 2 months before that because you have to generate hype. And it's really tough to do. It's really tough to stay active in the scene, and you want to show that you're working all the time and you want people to come out and see you, also creating demand and interest for your own music.
It really is like that's one of the more stressful things about playing in the band is like having to make those choices where it's like, okay, here's like a Saturday night, it's a really cool venue, there's gonna probably be a cool crowd, but like we're not gonna make any money. And it's like, okay, that's a night, that's a Saturday where I could have had a paying gig, but I'm giving it up. So it's like, and now it's like, where else? How am I gonna like make up for that somewhere else?
So it's
just constantly like just plugging up the holes, and it's very stressful.
Like
but
we just
you
played at
do
Rockwood.
play gigs for exposure. That's
Right.
kind of what it comes down to, and we scoff at that as musicians. We let playing for exposure, but like
have
you
to.
really have to do that.
Like in
Although
New York,
it's nice
to
they
some
pay
extent.
you for your exposure.
That's
so
always
there's
the best.
the Red Lion in New York City. So
Yes.
I
Major shout out.
Major shout out to the Red Lion, yeah. Because like the reason I ended up of all these places, like I said, where I've been, in New York City was one of those places where it's like, oh, of course you end up in New York City, you live here, and then you realize you're gonna double park, pay $40 for parking or whatever it might be if you can't find street parking,
Or 150 for a
or
parking
150
ticket.
for a parking ticket.
Yeah, you get those. Yeah. And then you get a speeding ticket if you go over 25 miles an
See,
hour.
these are what we're
We'll go
talking
into
about,
that,
choices.
yeah.
and
Choices,
balance.
yeah. So we just played at Rockwood Music Hall, 45-minute set for nobody, but then your name gets within the system. And then the next day we played at the Red Lion. The Red Lion, unlike any other place in New York City, does 3-hour sets and pay scales for all the musicians. Right. So it's this much it's like I make this much. If there's two, we each make double that. So it's like if it's 150, 150. If it's 4 of us, 150, 150, 150, 150. Like that's
Beautiful.
It's the only place, Long Island or City, I think I just touched it, the only place that actually does that.
So shout out to Redline, and if you guys are listening, we appreciate what you're doing
Absolutely.
for musicians.
Oh, yeah.
Because the goal of this organization that we've created, Listen Up Long Island, is to give musicians livable wages, right? And you got people like Tom, Tom's gigging real hard, and sometimes he's putting all this energy and effort into on deaf ears, and these two here, absolute unit, beautiful, beautiful music. I can't endorse them enough, but we got to feed these musicians. Right? So
that's right.
If you're someone in the position to feed musicians and you pocket it instead, we got our eyes on you. But to the other venues, this isn't about you.
Yeah.
But someday it might be, all right? But for the Red Lion, shout out to you guys. And we really want to highlight the businesses that are doing right by our people, while we have this spotlight. And, you'll notice on this podcast, there's a couple good ones that come highly endorsed, right? Westfall Studios, so far, people talk about how they're good. They help. I don't know if you guys ever recorded anything. You guys
reputation. We do all the recordings in my basement, but the reputation of Westfall absolutely has
great reputation.
We
Murphy's Music, our sponsor for the
Love those
March
guys.
8th Festival.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Good people, right?
Yeah.
So for anybody watching with a business related to music, you do right by the musicians and it'll come around.
Well, we should probably use this time then to give Tonehouse a shout out. I mean,
let's hear who are the people that you guys
heard of them.
endorse?
Tonehouse Gear, right?
So there are. So I started working with Mike Ars. Shout out Mike he's a local. I guess I don't even know what they're like an all-in-one. They keep their social media pretty cryptic, so it's worth checking out. But they support our techs. I bought my Wurlitzer off of them. I got all my pedal boards wired professionally from them. Like I've built pedal boards my whole life, but these guys have 20 years of experience. They have like it's like you could shake it, nothing's gonna fall off. There's LEDs or mounted around the whole thing. It's like insane. It's
awesome operation.
Yeah, awesome operation. They have all sorts of gear, and now that we work really well with them, like for example, our new drummer doesn't have drum mics, so we say like, hey, we're recording the show, and they'll like loan it to us.
Yeah.
Which is
major supporters of
major supporters, which has been saving us like thousands of dollars along the way.
Beautiful.
I haven't seen Mike in a bit, but I wanted to tell him about this and hook him up with you guys because he, and they probably have guys who work with them that are also on this lineup, or at least in the network.
Of course.
But all their work is warranted. If you have a problem with it, they do all of our setups. You bring it back to
repairs.
Yeah. And they really, it's very comforting knowing you have that sort of experts backing you. Like if you need advice or whatever. And they also have an operation of a live room where we do shows. They do private events there. The recording space. They have amazing gear and it's all usable. It's all out. It's, here's a Fender Rhodes going through a Fairchild, whatever. Like it's all out and usable. So those guys, really support and are awesome, and we want to give them a major shout out too.
Wow. And where are they based?
Tonehouse Studios in West Babylon.
West Babylon.
It's by appointment only. It's not like a Guitar Center.
Yeah,
you walk in, they make it feel like it's tailored to you. You walk in, like he still has me in his phone as Tommy Arpanoid, because there's an Arpanoid Earthquaker Effects pedal that I wanted. That's how I found out about them like 8 years ago. So I walked in there and it was just me, and he's like, pick an amp, pick a guitar, and I went and played with. It was just me. It's just full attention to me, and it's really awesome. Just you if you're a serious musician, you need serious support.
Yeah.
And these guys provide that.
Mm-hmm.
Huge endorsement.
Yeah.
We got an event coming up with you guys, March 8th. We got the official Listen Up Long Island Festival. So why don't you tell some people what they might be hearing out of the Rooster? These guys are going on at 7? 7 o'clock sharp. Rooster going on the stage. You guys got anything special planned? You got, why don't you talk about, the event?
Yeah.
The full lineup that day.
The full
right?
lineup.
Yeah.
Well, there's 4 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we again with these lineups.
That's funny. I'm like, well, who do you think the full
What do you-
lineup
yeah,
is?
yeah. Yeah. Well, like at this point, like I said, right now, because we don't have, it's sort of like a Steely Dan thing where he and I are writing and recording all the stuff, and then we have this amazing cast of musicians who's been playing with us, and it's going to be the 4-piece that day.
Yeah.
Which is fun because then it moved forever in the trio. Dave was playing bass.
That's right. Yeah.
But Dave's a guitar player, obviously,
Right,
excellent guitar player. So now that we have a bass player, and it frees him up for guitar, and so many of the songs have 2 guitar parts. So now we get to do that stuff. But yeah, you know, we're going to hear the new tunes. We have some new songs that are going to be debuted there, as well as the classics. And
New songs debuted March 8th. Rooster. If you're a Rooster fan like we are,
you see some new stuff, yeah. And you know, we always like to, we're big believers in covers. You know, as a big Giant Fish fan, you know, covers are still a huge part of their show. Same thing with the Dead. Even Paul McCartney still does covers. So it's like, we're always going to do, we always throw that in there. And you know, you bookend it. We've had to, when we didn't have a lot of material, even a 45-minute set for us, needed some interesting covers. So like, you know, you do it cleverly where you sort of mix them in, you know, like in the middle of songs, and then you put your song on the end. Nobody realizes that you snuck a cover in real quick.
Yeah, we try to make it worthwhile. We won't just do a straight up cover. It'll have some sort of a
Rooster-esque features.
Yeah, like Tom mentioned earlier before we were recording. It's like we're very particular about our songs. We play our songs the way they go, but everything else, it's just like, you know,
it's just whatever.
Cut the bridge out.
Cut the bridge out, depending on what instrument we're playing. Yeah, you know,
I've been there.
Yeah, we used to have a saying on the bandstand, which was "fuck the bridge."
That's right. Yeah, just in every situation.
Yeah.
Who has the mental capacity to remember every bridge to every song?
Well, it's funny now that we're
remember the main part.
Yeah, now that we're playing Beatlefest, I'm like, oh damn, I have to get all these lyrics down. Like the Beatles songs, you know,
we're playing to hardcore Beatle fans, so we can't. There's no fuck the bridge on that show.
No,
yeah,
it's not even fuck. It's just getting the words in the right order. A lot of those John Lennon songs are very interchangeable lyrics, so it's like getting them.
You're like, is it sheepdog or wigwam?
Yeah,
it's one of those words, and neither of them makes sense.
So who is the John, and Paul, or George, or Ringo of this group?
Well,
say?
Is it one of each of you embodies like 2 or what?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's we're obviously very inspired by like the John Paul dynamic, the harmonies, and the you know
there's this thing of we often when we're writing, one of us will have an idea and then be like, nah, that's stupid. I don't like that idea. But then the other one's like, no, keep that. That's the song right there.
Famously, the John Lennon, you know, when Paul was writing "Hey Jude," he's like, "The moment you need is on your shoulders," but that's stupid. John's like, "No, it's the best part."
Exactly.
So like,
we have that moment all the time with each other.
So having someone across the way who trusts you,
recognizes,
recognize, because we're both looking for the same thing, and ultimately,
that's how like Trouble in Me was written. Is you just like sat down at the piano and you had a headache that's been killing you all day.
Yeah, and I just said that, and Dave was like, "Whoa, what was that?" I was like, "I don't know."
Like, that's a song. That was a great opening line.
Yeah.
And then we just like
bit by bit.
Yeah. But it took that moment of like him playing something, and then like it would have been gone forever. Yeah. But I was like, that was cool. What was that? And that happens like vice versa a lot of times.
Yeah, it comes with having the confidence. Like we're both very not confident songwriters.
Yeah.
So like having someone else who's also like, I don't want to say bad at it, but like someone who hasn't released music, like, you know, it's a confidence thing.
Yeah.
So when Dave were like, oh, well, we sing together all the time, so that means it's not just me singing. You know, I'm a very self-conscious singer as it is too. So it's like if the two of us sing in unison, like early Beatles, and then split for the harmonies, then it's like this one thing, unified thing. All the songs are written together, so it's like it's comfort in numbers. You know, apes strong together.
Yep,
strong.
Apes together strong.
That's what it is.
You know,
get it wrong.
Else, there's something that I heard there in what you said, where you said that you guys are unconfident songwriters, but together, you know, you guys bring out your confidence. It brought up something for me that resonated. So in the book The War of Art, I'm not sure if you guys read Scott Pressfield, which in my opinion I would highly recommend for any creative, and if you guys haven't read it, I would love for you guys.
I'm gonna add it to my list.
Yeah, just check it out. But there's this quote that he says that the real deal, like, artist is always second guessing and doubting himself, and like it's hard for him to like kind of appreciate like what his full creativity expressed is. But the person that's like, oh, like I'm an artist and 100% full, you know, like then like those people tend to be like not the real deal. And I just want you guys to know, like from where I'm standing, like you guys are the fucking real deal, man. And the songwriting is phenomenal. And I can't remember the last time, and this goes for every artist. This isn't like, I'm not just talking about like Long Island artists. I can't remember the last time I listened to an album, and I'm talking about the Mr. Rooster album, or was it Nightlight Rider?
That's on the Mr. Rooster album, yeah.
Nightlight Rider's on the album,
Yeah.
but it's the Mr. Rooster album.
Yeah.
I've listened to that album through, and I've thoroughly enjoyed every single song.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why we put these two on the bill, and that's because we believe and love the Rooster music. And if you're watching this right now, you stream Mr. Rooster right now. Put it on, when you're working out, in the shower, put it in the car, put it put
it on repeat while you're sleeping.
It's so easy
It's
to
in
listen
my head
to.
on
It
repeat,
sounds weird.
actually,
Dude, I've been playing it in the car for my
it's one of
friends.
those albums
really appreciate that.
you could really get
Thanks, man.
lost in the music, and I think that's what it is. Like, wow, it's like you just like like I said, it's timeless. But I noticed you have eclectic styles that are in there. Like, there's even kind of like hip hoppy kind of breakdowns and like DJ scratches and things like that.
So
and
it's all just stuff that we
words
love.
and lyrics and all that. So it really encompasses like your natural sense of music. And
I think Tom and I have sorry to cut you off. Tom and I have pretty eclectic, weird interests, and we just kind of put it all into the music all together. Just like, because this is what we are. We're
when you grow up,
not everything is
skateboarding and watching WWE. You're into new metal and hip hop. So like when I always wanted to scratch, and I was a kid. I learned how to he knows how to do it too. Yeah, I remember that one too.
you guys should have a beatboxing.
I was into beatbox. So then during COVID, I was on like a 6-day COVID quarantine while I was waiting for test results to come back. And I had two belt drive turntables in my basement, which is not what you're supposed to use. And I was listening to this podcast, is Questlove's podcast, and he had on DJ Jazzy Jeff talking about how he learned how to scratch, which was on 2 belt drive turntables. He made slip mats out of wax paper. And I'm like in my parents' basement being like, I can do this right now. So I went and I sat there for like 6 days, just like
hitting the scratch.
Fuck yeah, because it would jump.
They're tricky too, man.
It's real vinyl, but after I got the feel of it, I was like, oh my god, I have rhythmic development over 25 years in my fingers already. Yeah. So I called Dave. I'm like, dude, you just need to put in that. All you guys, if you're musicians, anyone, you can do it. If you have the hardest part about scratching, about using it as an instrument, is the rhythm, and also it's the opposite. It's like fundamentally, it's a different instrument. Like you activate it by letting go. So when you're not touching it is when it makes a sound. So that's like what you have to train your brain to do.
That's true. Yeah,
but,
I thought about that.
But once you get into it, like it's now this is just another tool you have. So we kept figuring out like, well, how do we, like we didn't have a drummer. So then, and I'm a huge hip hop fan. So I'm like, let's just sample all the drums. So I have all these drum sample records. Yeah. And then we wanted to throw in the scratching, and it's like, it just becomes, sort of a culmination of our influences.
It's like we both got the ability to scratch. It's like, let's put it in the music. Why not? Let's just put it in there.
Yeah.
I know some other thing. I'm curious. So like Nightlight Rider, there's a part after one of the choruses where I hear like that kind of Miserlou-esque like you know what I mean, like the little tremolo like down the thing. Is that like kind of a little bit of influence, like a little surf rock influence?
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and then the verse after that, we kind of took the Peter Gunn theme, that.
Don't tell Peter.
I won't say that. Yeah, don't tell Peter Gunn, and sped it up a little bit. But yeah, those old surf rocky, like I love that sort of stuff, and like the tremolos. And also right at the beginning of recording on Facebook Market, I got this beautiful 1980 cherry red Epiphone Casino with aftermarket P90 pickups and tuners. This thing is amazing. I got it for a steal. And when it makes you play differently, the same way a real Wurlitzer makes you play differently than a patch. This Epiphone Casino, fully hollow, just demands you to play a certain way. And when I'm playing it, like these like chord melody, these like very early 60s things just feel right on it. So when we were doing that song and I was playing it, I'm like, I was going to do something else. I'm like, no, just the tremolo. And then, that surf rock.
Letting the songs be what they want to be also is something that we're getting better at.
Packing away your chops to let the song be what it is.
Exactly. Sometimes you have a tendency to overcompose. You just are like, this could be better. We could add more stuff to this. Make this rhythm more interesting.
More isn't always more.
Yeah, it doesn't. The song doesn't always want to do that.
Yeah, that old expression, serving the song. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and another thing, this is sort of a side note, is I've learned from writing with Tom that like sometimes you don't like your ideas because they're your idea. It seems obvious to you because it came from your mind.
Yeah.
It's like going off of the Trouble in Me thing.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you sing something and you go like, nah, that's whatever. But it's like it just seems obvious to you because you came up with it. So that's why, again, I need a writing partner, someone where I can go, is this dumb? And then they're like, no. It's like, oh, okay, good.
Also, you fall into your traps and into your tendencies, and it's
Yeah.
when you have someone who doesn't have those, just naturally, it's very easy. Like, when you start to realize, like, these people, anyone who's like a real artist, is so hard to imitate because they're just doing what's authentic to them.
Yeah.
So, like, John Lennon famously would write bits of songs. Here's this bit, here's that bit, here's this bit. And then he would figure out, how can I slam these two bits together?
I've heard John Mayer talk about that.
Yeah.
Too, similar things.
And we do that a lot
Yeah,
too, where it's
yeah.
like we haven't released anything up until Mr. Rooster creatively, like where we were the main thing in charge. But I've been writing halves of songs forever, you know, like
I know the feeling.
yeah. So when it came down to like picking out stuff, it's like, what can we dust off? What can we repurpose? What's a half of a song? And the Beatles just came out with Now and Then. And that was from these old John Lennon demos. And if you listen to, Real Love, which was the demo from '95 that was released as a Beatles song, that was real life, and it was real love, and then it was a bridge here, and then so you hear his process through it, and you're like, all right, like this to me seems authentic because the writing process allows this section to get cut out. Everyone was bitching that the bridge to Now and Then was cut out. I'm like, I bet you John would have cut that out. It doesn't seem like it's related to the rest of the song. But knowing how he writes songs, he always tries to like, does this work together?
Put yourself in.
Does this not
Right,
work
yeah.
together? Yeah.
Right.
So, and when you watch like Get Back, you're watching John be like, I can't sing this. It's like, what do you mean you can't sing it? You're John
Yeah,
Lennon,
yeah.
when they're doing Don't Let Me Down.
those-
For example, it's like really human watching them work out the songs. And that's what's inspired the Mr. Rooster albums. We were
Absolutely,
watching
yeah.
Get Back for like the 50th time. And I was like, you know what? If they can write 5 #1 hits in 2 weeks, we can write something decently shitty in a month.
Another thing.
And you guys wrote the Mr. Rooster album in a month? That was
A month, 2 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
Soup to nuts, yeah.
But we were heavily inspired by Get Back.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was we set aside like office hours where
Yeah.
it's like this day
Tuesdays and Fridays.
Yep, and it's like
Songwriting.
we're getting together
Yeah.
and for this amount of hours and we're working and like whatever we're working on, we're working. That's the
Yeah.
important thing. And it's like you see in Get Back, the Beatles are showing up to the studio, with their coffees in the
Yeah.
morning. Like it's
John's late. That's where Get Back came from.
they're coming to work.
John's
and-
waiting
and-
for Paul to show up. Paul's waiting for John to show up, and he's just dicking around on his bass, and he just starts singing "Get Back." 'cause
Yeah.
John was late.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, But something about them just showing up, and it's like if you do want to be that for us anyway. That
Yeah.
was what changed the game was when we said, okay, this is a job now, and we
Yeah.
have hours that we're going to be working that we set aside, and
Yeah,
and that was really effective.
Instead
for
of
us.
being goal based, because like you can have a lot of pressure on yourself, like the song has to be done by today, but sometimes you just can't finish it. You don't have the creative juice there. So if you just give yourself 3 hours, 5 hours today, then we can okay, song's not working today, or this song isn't working. So
Move on
let's
to something
move on to
else.
something
exactly,
else.
it's having that time set aside to work.
I am curious about that. So, like, because I've heard different people's opinions. Some people, they feel like, oh, inspiration strikes me and then I write a song. And people go
That's
on, like,
true, too.
sprees. But then there are other people, like, specifically in that book I said, which I'm, like, a huge fan of.
I just wrote it down. So,
Yeah, but, he talks about, like, showing up every day and then, like, and I guess this isn't exactly, like, showing up every day. But my question is, how do you balance, like, pushing through it versus like letting the song kind of come to you? You know what I mean?
Well, so it's so if you go back to the first song we wrote together, like Trouble in Me, was that was just sort of in the moment. And that was what we thought was like the best way to do it. And 3-Step Process was the same way. That was the second song we wrote, even though we just released it. That's an older song. But it was just very much in the moment because like I don't know about you guys, but this would happen to me all the time where I'd write some lyrics at night and then the next day I'd go to sing it and I'm like, I hate these.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't feel right singing these words. So when you start out singing it, that either felt good or that didn't feel good. Now, like Noel Gallagher says, it's like fishing. It's like sometimes the song just shows up and you're just fishing for it. Sometimes you get nothing. But like Nightlight Rider was like that, where it was 5 a.m. and I was looking for a nightlight and I couldn't find one. The Nightlight Rider, the idea was so I can write music at night without waking up the house. I wanted like a headband or something that I could dim, and but I'm like, it's an invention. It's a stupid thing, and then so I just wrote down these lyrics in like 5 minutes. So that
snap like a rubber band.
Yeah.
When you put it around your head or something.
Yeah, all of that, but all those meanings came afterwards. Like again, I didn't write any of that stuff with it intended to be like is unified as it is. It just came out like that's fishing. Noel Gallagher said.
Yeah, same, You'll Never Leave was the same thing with me. I wrote all of the lyrics to that in one. I just sat down and wrote them, and I don't know, it came into my head. There's
like one stream of consciousness.
And there was like other stuff in there that I didn't use, but like all of it was there.
But that song,
immediately.
There is that, and I never understood that until you did see them, Bob Weir and Noel Gallagher, talking about the song like does
coming
exist.
Right in.
Yeah, that's what Noel Gallagher said when Yellow by Coldplay came out. He's like, God damn, that was one of mine.
One stream.
Yeah.
The song that I think was like the best that I've written so far is the song Helen of Troy. And it was exactly that. It was late at night, and it was just one stream of consciousness, and just start to finish. And then, I built out like the rest of the stuff, like in the production of it. But yeah, I definitely know that feeling, and it's not always like that. So.
And then to answer your question, when it comes to like pushing through, and I keep referring back to this. I feel like this is like a Mr. Rooster / Tom Talks About the Beatles podcast.
Of course.
That's just who I am as a person.
Yeah. Anybody who knows you is not surprised.
Yeah. But so when you watch them push through it, they did a lot of like just bullshitting. They just what a day for a daydream. Like they're just messing around with other stuff. But you got to keep the chemistry going. Like you got to keep the vibes in check, because like sometimes you could just be like, we just did a retreat and we were just had a tough time sort of pushing through it. So it was me, Dave, and our art guy, JT, and then my college roommate, Pat. And so, like, if I wasn't feeling it or if Dave wasn't feeling it, like, you weren't required necessarily to, like, be super involved because we had this team working together. So, like, when I wanted to get up and take a smoke break or whatever, like, they were still working on it. And then I would have fresh air. I'd come in, maybe they'd be at a new spot, fresh ears. But having that dedication to like
stick it out.
Yeah.
It's not all fun and games out here.
It's not all fun and games.
Put in the work.
You gotta work, yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes when something comes to you super easily like that, like Nightlight Rider, which was the first song intended for that album that was written, I'm like, these we'll just bang out. If it's like that, then we'll just
the whole album tomorrow, right? But it's but you know what else? It had to have been the product of you before that. Like, how many times you sit down to write something and it didn't like work like magic. Personally, I love Nightlight Rider. One of my favorite, Mr. Rooster songs.
Oh, thank you.
But
I think there's a familiarity to it because I think, and I wouldn't, compare you to the Beatles, but there is like a Beatles-esque feeling to it. But I think overall, like, when the Beatles wrote their music, it sounded like they were channeling like from somewhere. Like and the familiarity comes back because your music, it sounds like it's channeling from somewhere. And I think there is like a true source of music that people like hear on repeat, like in a psychedelic sense, that when you hear things that appeal to you. And when you were talking about your writing, that you something that's already naturally there, it's like it's so obvious that this is the melody or something like that. So there is something like in music that people want to hear, like a repetitive chorus or repetition is like all part of music. So there is some sort of familiarity, wouldn't you say, with like.
Well, they say keep it simple enough to where people can sing along, but not too simple to where it's like still catching them off guard. So that's where like these arrangement things, a lot of music I grew up listening to, other than the Beatles, bands like Weezer's first 2 albums, Linkin Park's first 2 albums, music that I love that's dear to me is expertly arranged. You have like a little, just a little extra bar before the chorus, or the second time you have a pre-chorus.
Yeah, that music's just all arrangement.
Yeah, it's all.
So what's the word? Intentional, right?
Yeah.
So much.
So that's what 3-Step Process was for us, where we had this 1.5-minute song. Then we went into the studio and we're like, how do we make this a little longer? So then we came up with another verse. We had an extra solo to it. Like when the Beatles came in with "For Me to You," they had like 1.5 minutes. So George Martin was like, all right, let's put an intro on it, let's put a solo on it, and an outro, and then you have 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and now they have a single.
Right.
But so there is that element to it, and we do get by on a lot of that because we, again, like I said, as non-confident songwriters, if we have something that we like and we're too scared to add to it, then we can always just, as we say, just arrange it. It's like, tell me what's it to you. Tell me / what's it to you is a song, but that lyric is from, it's theme and variations was with this album. We went in and we're like, all right, let's just recycle all this stuff.
Keep it tight.
Keep it tight.
Fluff.
What's it to you, Mr. Rooster? Tell me what's it to you, Mr. Rooster. Mr. Rooster, tell me what's it to you.
So that's
that sums up the whole. That phrase sums up the whole album.
And that was all from I was during COVID. I was trying to work on some music, and I left the house and I went over to this dock by my parents' house, and I was playing my guitar. I actually have a video of it, and this rooster next door was just heckling the shit out of me. It was just like I'm trying to play, and it's like so loud, and I thought it was so funny, so I started going, oh, Mr. Rooster. I was talking to Dave about it, and we're like, this is like the asshole at a gig who's like, what do we got here? What are we playing? Like the guy who comes up to the gig and he just like won't stop. So then we came up with that chorus lick, the "Tell me what's it to you, Mr. Rooster" thing, and then that sort of sat on the table for years.
So that was actually directed at an actual rooster originally.
Initially, yeah.
Right.
And
I
Mr.
never
Rooster
thought of that until just now.
And
Is that
Mr.
where you came up with the name?
That's where the band name came. So when it
Heckling
came
Rooster.
down to January, when we started recording the album, we didn't have a band name. We knew it wasn't going to be Tom Bauer Trio anymore, and we knew that by March 16th or whatever it was at Industry, the gig. That's the way it works with us. We have an album release party May 23rd at Bright Eye Brewery, but none of those songs are.
Everyone show up May
Yeah.
23rd, Bright Eye Brewery. I'll be there for sure, supporting the Rooster.
So that's how we do it. Was we book the date and then the songs come, because I'm a procrastinator, so I need a deadline. So we knew that by March, whatever it was, the band was going to be a new name, and we are going to have these new songs by that day. So we came up with probably 3,000 band names, and we had like everyone who was involved. My parents, my mom she didn't like Mr. Rooster, so she's like, what about Flim Flam? I'm like, Mom, we're done.
We're not rebranding.
We're not doing it again.
Someone,
Yeah. But
Can't make everyone happy. with
So
the
it took.
name,
So we had all these, and I have it on my phone. I have like lists, like literally like 1,000 band names, and every single band name turns out is already taken. And if it's not by a big band, it's by some shitty band with 100 followers, but they have the handle.
The
so,
name, right.
And because Instagram handles are deciding what the rest of my life is my business name is. That's what we were, beholden to. So when it came finally down to it, it was like the 2 days before the gig. And I said, what about Mr. Owl? And JT goes, what about Mr. Rooster? And it was like you and me were in the room, and then like everyone else who was like on our team was like on speaker or somehow, and we're like, is everyone fine with that?
Done.
Yeah.
And we said, we're never thinking about it again. We're just going to change it to that.
on.
We finished writing one of the songs in the parking lot of that
lot of that show. Yeah, tell me what's it to you. We finished writing.
Right, tell me what's it to you.
While
And then whatever we
while
wrote,
Ernie was on.
I can't
On the
remember
phone?
what part it was, but that was in the final.
It's in the final
yeah,
song.
we really
yeah.
did
I think it was the
complete
chorus.
writing the song.
Tell
man.
me. Yeah. Yeah, we were
Yeah, that's what it was. The chorus of
the
"Tell
chorus.
Me What's It To You,"
Yeah.
which is like my favorite part of the song.
Yeah.
It's a great chorus, man.
But then you think
Funny
of
how that happens.
and having someone like just to get back real quick with that song was the melody is on, it's all syncopated, whatever happened to. So when I came in with it, I was like, whatever happened to, and Dave was like, no, just slide it back one. So we slid it back, and that's where the song came
syncopate
from.
everything.
So then for the second verse, when we stole the first line from the Full House theme, whatever happened to predictability, nobody knows about it. It's all pushed back.
Now they do.
Yeah, now they do. Yeah.
There it is, another Easter egg in
Yeah.
Rooster music.
For the Listen Up Long Island thing, I don't know if I know you guys have had your own campaign, but like, I did see something that said like celebrating 20 years. What is that? Has this?
The scene day, yeah.
Oh, so, well, we kind of had, Taking Back Sunday, Taking Back Scene Day, because everybody talks about the Long Island music scene. Everybody's about scene. What kind of scene is this? Like, you go to a show, like Huntington has their own scene, Farmingdale has their own scene. So, like, bringing back the idea of scene, but, like, uniting it to, like, one unified Long Island scene where you can listen to hip-hop, you can listen to jazz, you can listen to rock. It's trying to unite all musicians, so we're taking back the scene from the last 20 years, which, maybe it's not so significant, but there was in 2003, 2004, there was coming around this cohesive scene of like those bands, like
Oh yeah, we were ska kids, so
Oh,
we
yeah.
were big on the Long Island ska,
Oh, yeah.
ska hardcore. I think Bayside at the East Islip Lanes or something like that. One of those bands that ended up I was probably like 2005. I was probably 11 years old. All those like Flaming Tsunamis, Spidernick and the Mad Dogs.
Yeah.
All these bands came through the East Islip Lanes, which is where I'm from. So like that scene,
And this Goldfish.
and this
went to my
Goldfish,
high
yeah.
school.
So we knew about these. Norma's Lemon Stand lived across the street from me. All these like
These
local
band
ska-
names are all
I know
insane.
they're all ska bands. But that scene was you felt it. You walked in, like everyone was seeing local bands. I played in ska bands. My brother played in ska bands. All the band geeks were like now cool kids because they were in like ska bands.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yep.
So that scene though, like I know exactly, at least from my perspective of it, used to be super unified. And it's sort of fortuitous that we ran into you guys and that this has all
Yeah.
worked out because through Hecture, I think in 2020, when I say through Hecture, I mean through this festival we've done. That was an idea, was giving back to the community through like all these musicians who weren't working at the time. If the goal really is to bolster the Long Island music scene and you have all these scene, like these festival promoters, then, I think you can really turn Long Island into a destination.
Yeah.
And especially since all the jam band festivals are all getting kicked out now. They all got bought. I don't know if you saw this. Live Nation bought Peach Fest, gone. Lockin', gone. All these,
Really?
yeah, all the major jam band festivals are, and that was kind of our goal for this summer. So,
Jeez.
so we're really looking forward to starting something new, and we believe in you guys.
Yeah, we
fully.
appreciate you guys. It's like you might not realize if you watch like a lot of like TikTok guitar players and stuff, but like many musicians are actually very awkward and like antisocial people. Some of us are a little strange, so we need people like you guys to help kind of bring us together and kind of be like, hey guys, let's all hang out. We're all cool. And it's like
Right.
I know you all think everybody hates you, but it's just part of like the fraud complex of being a professional musician.
Dude, it's amazing.
So I appreciate you guys because this way musicians are allowed to be their awkward selves and people like you are helping us
Yeah, 'cause
get together.
Everybody's too cool now for everything, and especially when you're doing music for a living, and it's like
Exactly.
people aren't paying to come see you. It's really easy for them to be like, "Shh, you're just background music."
Yeah.
Right, it's hardening, man.
Which happens a lot. Like I do these boat gigs over the summer. I got shook one time real bad. This whole group of like old ladies were like yelling at me. They're like, "You're just background music. You need to stop." And I was like,
Jesus Christ, man.
"Okay." So anyhow, we
It makes us laugh. We find it hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole thing is about, like, caring about original music because there's so much care about playing those same old 60s, 70s songs, which
Yeah.
are great, but, like, we want to make room for original music and be able to pass on a generation of music that, like our kids will be listening to, and to create Long Island as a place of like, this was our time that we had to, was the message that we, all felt together. This was our vibe, when you think about Woodstock, what the vibe was, like peace, love, and music.
And that was also the outgrowth of a class of the 60s Renaissance. You had all these people in Laurel Canyon, California, for example, working together. You had these jam sessions where that's how Crosby, Stills and Nash got together, because the Hollies and the Byrds and Buffalo Springfield were all living in the same neighborhood. They would drop in on jam sessions. Oh, George Harrison's there. That's why If I Needed Someone sounds like this Byrds song, because Roger McGuinn was playing the 12-string guitar. So like this, and then the music gets better because of your bands. Like there's so many good Long Island bands. Our friends, MJT, for example.
Right,
we
were trying to get them on the bill.
Yeah, Matt, Godfrey, those guys, very good friends of ours. And it's like, I look at them and, I like, all the bands you do have. I'm like, there's such good bands. Like, there's such good talent on Long Island. And what you guys are doing is so wonderful for it because there's all these bands, if they're either sending their music out to the void, or they're playing covers for a living, which is sort of a misuse of everyone's talents.
Right.
Yeah. Like I look at to bring back MJT again. Like they play their own shows all the time, but the way they do work gigs, it's just covers, and they do their original music and stuff like that. But with the people, it's such a waste of what they're capable of doing.
Right.
Like anytime you want to see like art at that level, there's like classes of these musicians, the way there's classes of comedians. Like there's this whole class of Long Island musicians that has nowhere to play right now.
Right.
At least nowhere to have a unified scene.
It's been neglected. It's like a neglected garden that's just been sitting out, drying in the sun. And what we need is some gardeners to come over and
Yeah.
pour a little water.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And turn it into like a thriving jungle.
Some roosters.
And if you're watching this, the only way to grow that garden into a absolute jungle with all kinds of things is you got to come out and support the events. And just so you guys know, these two musicians right here, we want to water them. March 8th, we have a pledge to give 100% of the door to the performing
To just Mr.
musician.
Rooster.
Maybe at a different event. This one's gonna be, it'll be split. But the door is going to these musicians. So if you see this and you like these musicians and you like the Long Island scene and you're tired of hearing the same cover music and you're interested in something different, you come out. And to tell you what, we got a special promotion right now running. So you buy your tickets before, what day was it? February
14th.
February
Valentine's
14th,
Day.
Valentine's Day. Get your ticket before February 14th. You'll be entered in a raffle for a beautiful guitar, which will actually be signed by these gentlemen and the other musicians performing behind stage. And also we have some other secret giveaway prizes. So by the time you see this, there's only going to be a little bit of time. You can not only support the musicians of Long Island and contribute to the growing kindling scene, but you can also yourself win a guitar and some other secret prizes that we're not even going to tell you, but they're good.
There's some good stuff.
They're really good. And
Well, you know what it is? Like, musicians, music stores, music industry, venues, businesses, Long Island businesses, all need to work together, artists, and that's why we combined musicians and art, because they go together. I mean, music
Absolutely.
and art, your album cover, beautiful.
Yeah, that's our buddy JT, and he's also like a big idea man. I mean, he does all of our both the album artworks. He does all of our posters, our show posters, and his original artwork. And I've known him my whole life, and he believes in it. Like I remember we had this conversation, probably like 2018 or so, and it was like 5 a.m. We had been like hanging out drinking all night, and he was like, do you when all at the end of the day, he's like, do you consider yourself an artist? I said yes, and he goes, me too. And he was like the first person I met that still believed that. That at that point I was 24, and a lot of people who I knew who were really into it, even guys I went to college with who graduated with music degrees, stopped playing, because it's like we say if you want to be a musician, if you want to be a famous musician, you have to be mentally ill. You have to be willing to drive to Fargo, North Dakota in one night for a gig if that's what comes up, because that's your opportunity.
It's your shot.
Yeah. So whereas like a lot of sane people would never do that. And we drove to Rockwood Music Hall for a 45-minute set for nobody, into New York City, because we're mentally ill. That's where that comes from.
Right.
So, what was I going to say?
well, if you build it, they will come, man.
Yeah.
At some point, you guys keep it up, and then you go to Rockwood Music Hall, and then
The same way we made the
play
album
no
is just
pattern.
consistency.
But yeah, I forgot my original point.
Well, we
but
were talking about art,
art,
right?
yeah. So the artwork with JT he believes in it like the same way we do. Where like he'll call me, I'll talk to him, we'll talk for hours, and that's how Hector came about, and that's where like the idea for the artwork comes in. And he, because we've known each other for so long, and he was there from before I even knew Dave. He has a really good way of encapsulating what the band sounds like, I think, in his artwork. And he does this cool hybrid style where it's like he draws it, and then he has like some actual cutouts he put on there, and then he has like digital inserts on top of it. So much like how we do music with vinyl samples and all this sort of stuff, his music is also like samples. I mean, his artwork, it's very reminiscent of the music.
Yeah.
And it's important to be able to work with an artist who gets
Yeah,
it
and
like that.
JT was on our writing retreat with us a couple weeks ago.
That's what I
The
was gonna
mantra
ask
of the weekend became, I like JT's idea.
I like JT's idea,
You're the best
yeah.
ideas, the non-musician in the group.
Yeah.
So I heard you talk about that. So he's the person that comes along on the songwriting retreats and assists. So he's almost like a third component, and he does the artwork, right? So he's the one who made the cover for.
Yes, for both the single and for the album. And if you look at any sort of illustrated poster we had over the last 5 years, was all JT.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because we always get bands on here and they always have a team, right? So like, whether there's people like co-leading the band or what it is, but there's always like larger teams even outside of just the people that are
has to
strictly
be.
playing
It has
music.
to be, yeah.
So I'd like to hear about your team. Obviously shout out JT.
Sure.
He's a huge part of it, but who else do you guys work with? Who else is on the Rooster
Bobby.
team?
Yeah, so the other biggest by far guy is Bobby Holiday. Shout out Bobby.
Bobby.
He's our Swiss Army man. He's our lighting designer. He is our sound guy. He is our backup vocalist and lead vocalist sometimes.
Yeah.
So I went to high school, elementary school. He's the same age as JT. So this whole group, for those two guys, sort of an unfortunate series of events led us all to the same spot in 2018. So as adults, we all became friends again. And then with JT's artwork and Bobby's technical know-how, he's a union electrician, and he was also like the main lighting designer in the high school. So our first gig at the Drift Inn as a band, I went to Guitar Center. I bought a gig bar, lighting rig, and a DMX board. I was like, hey, can you figure this out? And he's like, sure. And ever since then, that's how we do it. So we have lighting night where we set up in the garage over at Dave's house, and we smoke out the, whether with
A hazer.
or
otherwise.
We'll smoke out the garage, and then he addresses the lights, and we set new cues. And he's also an amazing singer. He toured with an a cappella group in college.
Wow.
So he's, and his family, like when we do this thing in Heckscher, he brings out like 80 people,
Yeah.
like in just his family members.
Is he on any of the recordings in the?
No,
it's
well,
kinda-
so the thing with Bobby's, we have a lot of live recordings that are all covers. So we've been sort of hesitant about posting a lot of that because you have to pay for the cover license.
Right.
But when we do live releases, like when we give out CDs, and there's bonus tracks on the CDs that we give to people, he's on a lot of those.
Oh, you have the tracks in there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Will you be selling those March 8th? Couple CDs?
Yeah.
Rooster CDs?
Yeah, so we're working on T-shirts now. We're gonna have T-shirts. It's gonna be a buzzer beater.
By March 8th?
By March 8th, yeah. The CDs, we won't have real CDs. What we've been doing is we just burn them, and my girlfriend does some nice artwork on them, and we just give them out for free.
Sick.
So if you want a CD, we're not gonna sell them. We can have them.
Well, could we do something as like a giveaway? Someone who comes like specifically for Mr. Rooster, you guys think you could give away like a T-shirt and like a signed CD? Or
Absolutely,
something?
yeah. I mean,
signed T-shirt. I guess you have the option to get it signed or not.
It's-
Would add that as a giveaway. Is that-
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like it won't be before March 8th in all likelihood, because we're procrastinators.
All right, Mr. Rooster at the door March 8th. If you let one of us know, we'll enter you in there. We'll get you some
swag,
first-time
yeah.
merch.
And the bonus CDs we'll have the new single on them, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So those are fun.
Let me clip it.
Sure.
Yeah, I kind of have to use the restroom.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
yeah.
after you if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
too.
The Celsius student number on
Yeah.
me.
Pee break.
I think it's coming together great so far.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
You guys are very easy to talk at a record label, and I went and visited the label because Fish did. So I was visiting my family, and then they did 2 nights in Charleston and then 2 nights in Nashville. Bob Weir came out the first night, which was amazing.
Man.
So after that second night, Fish playing in Nashville, I went to the record label where I used to work to just say hi, and they're like, "Oh, the girls from Shell." That's one of the band on the record label. Shout out Shell. We're playing at this Leaf Music Festival in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. So this is in October. So it's the Blue Ridge Mountains, fully in foliage. It was amazing, and we just ended up there. We got these like backstage passes because of my friends in the band, and it was a small festival. I think the biggest band there was like Beats Antique, which was, they put on an amazing show. But it was like you walk. I was like, it was all so spontaneous. Your phone dies immediately. And this was back in the day. It was like 2016, so it was all right. And my phone died. I was single at the
You
time.
live without your phone for a little bit.
Yeah,
No
and I was just in the
accountability.
mountains, walking around, having the best time, looking at music everywhere. And I didn't know most of the bands, and I was so inspired by it. You're like, and this is after 4 nights of Fish, and now I just end up in this whole ass other thing. It was very cool.
Yeah, being at like a huge show, or even even a medium show or something. There's something about like oh wow, look at all of these people that are psyched on the same music that I'm psyched on right now. Like I said before, sometimes you get a little. I don't feel like I fit in a lot of places and things like that, or you feel like you get that fraud complex. And,
But at that place.
But then and it's this feeling. It's like music is one of the only things that makes me feel that way. Where I go, these are my people, right?
Right,
now. We're all
right,
psyched
right,
about
right.
this, and that's awesome. And sometimes in your day-to-day life, you might not be running into people who are into the same music you're in, and it's like those moments change you, where you're like, oh.
Yeah.
A lot of people love this. I'm not alone here.
Well, the very best weekend of my life was Fish's festival, Magnaball, in 2015, and that was like that was the first like real music festival I went to, and I was like You know, you just like, because if you're there at the festival, you're a Fish fan, you know, they're the only band that plays. So, like, you're a fan. You're camping out for 4 nights. You're not just like a casual Friday night, I'm going to go and just talk through the whole set. Like, you're like, I'm here for this.
Right.
They threw down the best music of their 10 festival they've thrown. The power rankings rank Magnaball at number 2 or number 3, if you're being nerdy about it. They did on Saturday day set, 2 night sets, and then every Saturday they do a secret set somewhere on the festival grounds. The band just shows up.
Find them,
you find them, and then they do like an hour improvised set. So that was the drive-in jam.
Like that one day.
It's so cool. I mean, they're constantly, there was like a whole campus of shit to do. So it was called the Glurt Institute, and it was Magnaball. So everything was like faux science-y. Like there was like just stuff everywhere, and they had like hundreds of people working the festival grounds. Like just you walked in, there's just people. And you know, the way Fish fans work, none of them are aggressive. If you push them, they'll fall down. So like everyone is just in the best mood. Everyone knows you're with a bunch of people the whole time. It's all like, oh, you know, it was like that was the best gen since, you know, New Year's '99, like whatever it is. Like, you know, you're having those conversations.
Something that blows my mind about Fish fans is they'll have like a hat with like a specific song from a specific
it'll
show.
It'll be like Boise bag. Yeah, so that's like the Boise AC/DC bag. Yeah. So like Fish fans are and it's so covert. Like I have
it's not just a hat of the band. It's a hat of a specific performance on a specific date at a specific venue.
What is it? Awesome, explain Fish, because to me, you know, it's one of those bands I've never gotten into. I don't understand the culture.
Sure.
But you explain to me, like, what is it?
How many shows have you been to?
I've been to 61 shows.
How can we bring that culture to Long
how do
Island?
you get that fanaticism right here for our artists?
You gotta dose everybody. Has to
nitrous balloons.
Nitrous balloons and LSD just on the way in. Yeah.
Just kidding.
No, but for real, I don't know. There is some sort of everyone just sort of gets the message. Like I remember I brought a dude to a show once who was like an asshole, and he was wasted, which again, it's like, you know, you can get wasted, but generally speaking, like, you know, the Fish crowds aren't like wasted people. It's more like people smoking weed and tripping out. So on the way out, people are bumping into him, and he's like puffing out his chest, and that's where I came up with, I'm like, dude, if you push these people, they're going to fall down. Like, this isn't that kind of crowd.
Right.
So like when they were coming around in the 90s and they were coming up, the security people for the Dead went on tour with Fish because they had this arrangement going back to the 60s. That's where all this comes from, is from the Dead scene, which says, like, treat these people nicely, ask them to put out their weed, ask them to, they'll do it. They're not going to fight you. Don't detain them. Don't like press them up against the wall. That's not how these people work. It's not that kind of crowd.
Right.
So there's been this, you know, real like peace and love sort of vibe that's been maintained since the 60s.
So the Fish picked up what the Dead
So
left
yes,
off.
and everyone always likes to compare the two. I don't see much similarities between them musically, but in 1995, so I'll draw a comparison to right now versus 1995. So right now you have all these bands, Goose and, I mean, Twiddle just hung it up, but you have all these like third and a half, fourth wave jam bands who are competing in the same space as Fish still. Fish is still really good. Really good. So if everyone's favorite band is still Fish, including the dudes in Goose and in all these bands, then you're never gonna beat them. And it's not, for better or for worse, they're the heavyweights. They've been here first, and this is their 40th year, actually now 41st year as a band. So they have the scene, you know, like the way the Dead did. In 1995, Jerry Garcia dies. So all those people who were on Dead tour jumped over to Fish. So they went from regional band to national band like that.
Wow.
But they ran with it because, like, the way, you know, in the jam world, you know, the way I see it is the Dead are like Elvis, where you can't have anything without them, and they broke ground. But Fish are like the Beatles, where every band now, inescapably, is influenced by Fish. Their favorite guitar players. So the PRS, that the 24 fret PRS with the semi hollow or even fully hollow with the cutaway, like that's modeled after the Languedoc, which is Trey's custom made guitar by Paul Languedoc, which he started playing in the 80s, and everyone was like, wow, what the hell is that big fat ass tone with 24 frets? It's like a one guitar fits all. So PRS started making factory copies based on the Languedoc, and now the Languedocs are like becoming like, he actually just partnered with someone else, and they go for like 20 grand or like 60 grand. It's crazy now, but yeah. So to get one, you need one custom made. But so this scene works with its fans. Like Fish started their scene because their friend, who was like the biggest fan back in the day, drove this big Suburban, and she would drive 7 of her friends in the car and put on tape and be like, hey, this is my friend's band. Here's a tape. Here's my friend's band. Here's a tape. Go see him. So that's where the snowball started. And then they, in the 80s, in the late 80s, they started in 1983, so by 1987, 88, the only people who had email addresses were college kids. So they were using the email to telegraph to people in Colorado, and there were these very few chat rooms. There was like Rec Web, Dead, Rec Web, Bob Dylan, Rec Web, Beatles, and then in the Dead one, all these Fish people kept crashing it. So of all the internet, there's like 3 forums in the whole internet. Fish got their own in a time when there was nobody else doing that. And then the way the fans allowed this to spread was by blanks and postage. Now that term refers to blank tapes and the postage required to mail them. So say I would put in my newsletter, I have all these shows. All you have to do is pay for blanks and postage. So you send me the tapes that are blank, and you pay for those, and I make you a copy of that show for free because I love this band. So here you go. And now, depending on how much, that's what a tape tree is. So I'm a trunk because I'm the one making all of them. And if you give them to somebody, you're now a branch because you did that. If you just kept it, you're a leaf. But that's the way a tape tree works. So Fish was the first thing ever to go viral on the internet, if you want to call it that. So this scene exists with their fans. There's no removing the fans. They had no chart success.
Co-symbiotic relationship.
Entirely.
Yeah.
And
So
all
when
grassroots.
So when they broke up in 2004, the trampolines are part of their show for this one song, these little dance trampolines, so they gave them out to the crowd. They just, here you go. And then in 2009, when they got back together, Trey didn't have a Ross compressor on his board, so a bunch of fans got together, bought him one, and sent it to him. And that's the one he plays with today.
Wow.
So like there is this massive, because back when they were coming up, they were before they took over the Dead fan base, they were just part of the scene. Like you would go there, I played chess with Trey, after this one show, or they did a bluegrass set in the parking lot after this gig in 1994. So like knowing the band was part of the deal until it was too dangerous for that to be the case.
Right, they get big enough and then you never know.
So that scene,
that
though,
crazy how that
to be a
flips?
Fish fan is to be a Stevie Wonder fan, a Talking Heads fan, a
Yeah.
comedy fan. There's
You gotta have a good sense of humor, something
Yeah.
about the band.
You got to be able to rough it. You've probably taken psychedelics before. So like when I meet someone who's a Fish fan, it's like meeting someone who's like
like went to the same school you
They
went
fit
to
your
or something.
archetype.
or like you're a circus acrobat. You've been in the same, I've been in the same place as this guy 60 times probably. We all have the same huge thing in common.
It's the community.
Yeah, so the community is everything. Like when I went to one Fish show this past New Year's run. I only could do one, and I ran into like 50 people I knew. It's like a big family reunion. So that sort of community is really tough to, how do you create that?
Foster.
Yeah, you need people to believe in it from the beginning, and I think that between us and all the bands you have, a lot of people do believe in it. So
How do you connect with Fish people nowadays? Fish fans, like, is there like forums?
Yes, yeah.
It still
So-
exists. Like,
So there's funny. So like Fish fans are not on like modern social media. You wouldn't see them on like TikTok, but they're all over Facebook because that's where like anyone above the age of 35 is. So Fish fans, the Fish Facebook communities and the Fish.net and Fantasy Tour communities are pretty poppin'. And then so that's where like if I talk with them, like if I talk with these people, if I want to say like promote this show, I would do it in one of those groups, for example. And people Fish fans love to hate Fish. That's like the joke, but they are very incredibly supportive. Fish jam band people in general are the kind of people who like, you leave MSG and there's like a homeless guy like doing this and everyone's dancing to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Jam,
Well, I
jam
always thought it
fans
was
rule.
Amazing with like jam bands. Grateful Dead, I'm pretty sure has the record for the longest running band touring, like in terms of years. Like even after Jerry died, they kept going, and then there's Dead
In multiple
Company.
iterations, yeah.
And it seems like Fish is kind of on their way to
yeah.
accomplishing that too. I don't know what it is about the genre. Like it seems like every other band they like break up, but like
the genre is everything. And I think Fish sort of outlined that, where Fish does their early stuff is very through composed, like classical jazz-esque, and then they do bluegrass and they do rock and they do funk and they do hip hop. Well, whatever it is, like they do all of it. Like during the Baker's Dozen in 2017, they did 13 nights in a row at the Garden, and each one had a different donut that was thematically connected to what the night was going to be. So like on Chocolate Donut Night, they opened with Chocolate Rain, the YouTube song.
No way.
Yeah. And they played You Sexy Thing by Hot Chocolate. You know, on Strawberry Night, they did Strawberry Fields. They did Strawberry Letter 23. So, and no repeats. 13 nights without a single repeat.
Unreal.
So when we do multiple night runs, like in Vermont or in Belmont, North Carolina, we'll do multiple night runs, so we don't repeat songs. And that's like what we've picked up from that. So you're giving people, it's not just like we're a reggae band, because like 13 nights of reggae is a lot.
Right.
Also, it's like I mentioned before that, like, you know, that Phish fans might have a hat with like a specific jam from a specific show on it. It's like, if that's the case, it's like you are going to go to every show because you don't want to miss that one jam. You know, it's never.
Yeah.
They're never playing it's never the same show.
Ever.
So there's this kind of FOMO that the fans get where they're like, oh, I better go because I might miss the greatest jam that has ever happened.
And anyone who wasn't there this past New Year's Eve knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And there's never going to be like complete reruns of nights.
Never.
Like you don't get it
No.
with that
I
kind
mean,
of
I think that's something we need to do with festivals, which is that,
Keep it
you
fresh,
know, March
Absolutely.
8th, if you don't experience this one, it's never coming back.
No.
I mean, the next festival is just going to be something totally different, a totally different vibe and theme.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey, Chris Rubin's got a lot planned for it too. I know he's going to be
Hell yeah.
that's something special.
Yeah, I mean, and shout out to all the other bands on the bill. It's
Yep.
going to be so much fun. Like, you know, and I saw the other list you guys had out. I mean, we don't get to hang out with other musicians ever because we all
We have
work.
our own shows.
Yeah,
Right.
we all work
Yeah.
the same days. So with that said, you don't get to see other bands. So on the rare night that I have off, like I will always go and see bands, and now I get to see like 4 of my favorite local bands just in one spot. So we're very excited to see all you guys too.
Yeah, and we have a green room that you guys can hang out, and you know, that's your time to like, you know,
Fuck
chill
yeah.
chill with them, see, you know, like experience with, you know, it's gonna be a unique experience, and that's why we want, you know, the whole Long Island community to come out, because it's not just about original music and arts. That's a huge part of it, but it's also about like doing something bigger for Long Island, for our hometown, that we can all be proud of, and create this, as you were saying, like a renaissance of our generation with music and arts.
And I think you guys really tapped into it.
Yeah.
You know, like, because, you know, like I mentioned with our own festival that we had going on, that, you know, we were happy to, hopefully, you know, if we could work something out with you guys. That would be
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be working.
because we want, I mean, I realized once I started talking to you guys that we don't have nearly like the infrastructure that you guys have. And, you know, I'd rather put all of what our chips towards this greater thing than, you know, gatekeep. It's not worth it. You know,
Yeah.
like you guys have
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that is
Rooster Fest coming soon.
I mean-
Rooster Fest,
2024.
rock-a-doodle-doo.
So fast, right? That is what we're realizing, is a lot of festival people, they get it. They get it that, you know, nothing happens just because I kept this to myself. And that's, you know, from beginning the collective, you know, I was pretty much the first one who was like, hey guys, let's do this. And then Alex came shortly after, but it was the idea that, you know, let's build something that's greater than all of us. And, you know, I think just by being authentic and organic and naturally, but also like giving everyone that equal voice is really important, you know, from, you know, bands that are just starting out to like bands that have, you know, this, you know, high clout now that they've been around for so many years on Long Island, that, you know, it's important that, you know, all these levels of musicians like all rise up together.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone has like something to offer when you know, you want to throw the best show you can. So like for us, you know, it would benefit us if we played a show with a really good band, because that means the people who are coming to see us get the best overall show. You know, you don't want to like, there's this, you know, when egos get involved, for example, you know, people don't want to share bills or whatever it might be. It's like, no, like the better the band on the bill, first of all, it's going to make us want to play better. And secondly, it's just going to up the whole level of performance in the show. We played in the Red Lion last week, and we had a really good opener, and it just completely changed the whole set, because this chick was crushing it and playing really cool music. So they were warmed up like nice and good by the time we got on. So that's what you want, like, and you know, like there's so many of these bands. It's like you have the clientele to put on top to bottom a really good show, but you know nobody's gonna pay that. No bar or venue is gonna be like, how many bands and you guys want to get paid? Like that's not
Right.
yeah
Yeah, they're like, oh, here's some more exposure.
yeah. Here's a drink ticket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get two
This-
drink tickets.
Yeah.
There you
Decent
go.
exposure.
This was very curated because like all of us in the collective, we kind of like, or at least the organizers, we listened to every band, made sure that these bands go well together. And you know, we spent like a month just getting the right bands with the right environment, because it's more than just like, oh, who can bring the biggest turnout, who has the biggest following, who can you know, like who's more popular or whatever, but it's about like, you know, how are we going to get people, when they come to the show, they're going to get lost in the music. And then, you know, just like the way comedy or the way any other art form is, like you line it up like one next to the other. And this will be like an album of its own, you know, where you have like, you know, an opening song and then, you know, some of the middle songs. So like, and then the headliner, the big bang at the end. So everything comes full circle.
Sure.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there's sort of, when we started out playing, which is what's fun about this right now, is that, like, you know, when everyone, I think of, like, our contemporaries, guys like MJT, because Matt has been a good friend of mine for a while, and you look at, like, when we all started meeting, 2018, I met Dave, and everyone was sort of figuring out, what are we doing? You know, who are we? And now everyone's come back and been like, okay, this is who we are. And that's what's very exciting about this, is you have a bunch of realized musicians all in the same place. Whereas, like, you know, when you're trying to figure out, it's like molten lava. It's like, it's still shapeless.
Right.
And now all these bands have gotten music, they've gotten credentials, they've gotten, you know, road experience.
Spent their time.
They put in their
Put in their
hours,
dues.
and now everyone's coming back as like, I was in the hyperbolic time chamber, and now we're ready to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is very fun to see, because, like, you know, the same way we're rooting for all our friends and all of our local friends' bands, you know, the same way, it's, you know, we got to believe in it, you know, like, I go to the Ducks all the time. You know, I live the Long Island Ducks because it's local baseball, like local art. I go and see local wrestling. It's just, you know, go and support the local arts.
Right, and that's how we all come up together, you know, and that's how we kind of establish like our own foothold of culture, you know, like we were talking to the guys at Bunktown Falls, and you know, Long Island, I feel like for a bad time has had a bad rep, and people are like, you know, don't take pride in the fact that they're from Long Island, and I really feel like we kind of need that sense of pride in order for us to develop these things and show off, hey, here's the cool music we had. Hey, I bet you didn't know the Stereo Garden has midget wrestling.
Yeah, Midget Mayhem wrestling. That's what I was actually talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like there's all
Yeah.
these things, right? And the summertime in Long Beach,
Yeah.
or you know, all down the South Shore. I mean, there's a lot of things that are sick about Long Island, right? Like one thing.
And we can infuse them. I mean, you know, there's and finding out there's a lot of skaters in
Fuck
the
yeah.
music
Skaters,
scene.
right? Get like in a skate park.
Yeah, do a skate park jam fest or whatever.
So
you know?
I played with Ernie in the band at the 420 festival at Blue Point, and they had a whole like skate demo area, which was sick. It was just like a little pen, and they had like a little kicker, rails, and a box. And I'm like, you're watching these semi-pros crush it right now, and the whole time I'm like, I want to just go skate with those guys.
Right,
Yeah.
dude, you should totally set something.
I think
like
that's a
that
great
up.
idea. Yeah.
You know, the other thing I think is kind of interesting and about
The bands
like,
can't play 'cause
history
they all
of,
fell.
Long Island is like the North Shore of Long Island. We're known for like these huge, massive estates, and like we haven't had the opportunity yet. But if you or someone you know has like a massive manor,
Anyone
that
out there?
you
Old
would
money?
like to set up. You know, we bring the Munoz stock stage out. Shout out to Evan Munoz, one of our
idea.
board members. And we set something up at one of these beautiful manors, and that could be like a truly Long Island like event, you know? And like there's a lot of components to Long Island, but I really think that would be sick. And imagine we even merge those worlds, like some huge estate, and then we also have like, I don't know, a skate park on like one of the
Sick,
lawns, like we
yeah.
bring out, like rent a big like half pipe or something.
Nice.
I mean, that could be great. But anyway, like I just feel like we take pride in the Long Island, and then we take advantage of the different components of Long Island, and then we establish our own flavor, because it really is
Yeah.
somewhere unique and different than like the rest of
Yeah.
the world, you know?
That's true.
Long Islanders have this chip on their shoulder, though, where it's like, only I can talk shit about Long Island.
Yeah.
It's like, I hate it until you start talking shit about it.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa. Yeah.
Well,
It's true.
we'll conclude with that, you know, the way Fish Fish fans hate Fish, and that's the joke.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
the fanaticism will come about, with Listen Up Long Island, with the Long Island music scene that, hate it so much that you love it.
Yeah. Well, they say the energy of music.
Yeah, I love how much this sucks.
Well, the spirit of New York.
That's why when Tom says we're South Shore trash, and we say that with pride.
Yeah.
That's
the spirit of
what we
New
are.
York is from Long Island. Like, the city is a lot of businesses, a lot of foreigners, but the real fuck you attitude, that's Long Island. And that's our festival, our Hexture thing. That's a very passive Long Island park, where it's not like you're not going there because it's beautiful or because of this and that. It's because it's a place where I grew up, doing the wrong thing my whole life. And then during COVID, I spent a lot of time. And it's like, you know what? Like, I love this park so much, and I used to see this Philharmonic festival there when I was a kid. And it was like Woodstock. You're like looking at this festival. I mean, they had fireworks, and it was a free concert, so that definitely helps. But free concert and fireworks in the park was very impressionable on me as a young kid. And I'm like, I want to throw a festival here, to have this Long Island thing be part of it, because it's like, everyone who's from Long Island, either they're from Long Island, like,
Or they leave.
or they leave, yeah. But like,
And that's why there's Long Islanders at all of our shows in South Carolina and stuff.
Exactly,
It's just all Long Islanders everywhere.
But even Billy Joel, like, Long Islanders know he's from Long Island.
Yeah,
but, like,
yeah.
outside of that, like,
They don't know,
People
right?
people from outside of Long Island don't even know Long Island exists.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I was living in Nashville, I'm like, oh, I'm from Long Island. Everyone was like,
Yeah.
New York?
You mean Rhode Island?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just started
Which
saying I was from Manhattan. It was easy. It was
Yeah, at least
way
they know
easier.
what that
Yeah.
is. All right, so
Big
why
Apple.
don't we conclude with this? So one, a Mr. Rooster song that you guys should check out. Whatever your favorite. So we each say like a favorite Mr. Rooster song. Then we shout out a band from Long Island that we like, and then if you have like any kind of like closing idea or thoughts. So I'll kick it off. Okay, so Mr. Rooster song that I would recommend is exactly that one. Mr. Rooster's been stuck in my head. There's so many good ones, but Mr. Rooster has been living inside of my head, so I'm going to shout that one out. As for local band, lately had the pleasure of seeing Monkey Bite at Industry.
Very cool.
And Nick Marino freaking shredded it. And he was on the podcast
Yeah.
with Chris Rubin Band. Anyway, who knows? Maybe we get him back on as Monkey Bite one of these days. Probably after the festival. But anyway, Spanish song by Nick Marino. Super sick. I would totally check it out. And final fun facts. I don't know. I got to come back to me.
Okay.
Oh, let's go this way.
All right, yeah, let's go.
All right, so what is it? Mr. Rooster
Mr. Rooster song, and then shout out a band.
I'm gonna say "Tell Me What's It to You." I like that song because it's like two songs.
Yeah.
it's like you get two for the price of one with that one.
That's why there's a / right in the middle.
And that's also the one that we finished writing in the parking lot of
Before
the release.
debut, yeah.
So it'll always have a special place in my heart for that reason. Let's see. Let's shout out Ernie and the band. I love those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, just totally awesome. Every time I watch them, I'm like, I just want to jump up on stage with them right now. And super cool guys. And the times I've gotten to jam with them have just been like so fun.
Very fun. Yeah, those guys. And I played with them. I played keys with them for a little bit from March through April, and it was super fun.
Yeah.
But anyhow, as a segue, so I would say check out the new song, 3-Step Process. So we also included, when we release a single, we always do like an A-side, B-side. So there's a B-side, which is some fun studio, actually it was us outside writing the song, mixed with a bunch of samples, and then there's this little outro tag. But the A-side, 3-Step Process, is what I would hopefully recommend you guys check out. As far as local bands, I gave MJT a bunch of shout-outs, so we're going to give a shout-out to our very dear friend Christine Sweeney and the Dirty Stayouts. Dave is also a member of that band. We love Christine. We played gigs with her. She was at Hexture with us this year. She was at Industry with us this year. Excellent singer, excellent songwriter. Her band is great.
Awesome person.
Awesome person, yeah. So we're big fans, so give a shout-out to Christine.
Check them out.
Hell yeah.
Cool. So I would say Nightlight Rider. It's one of those songs that just like so classic for Mr. Rooster, I would say. I mean, now that you've told us the background with that song, I mean, I think everybody should go check out that song and get inspired about writing original music, because you work through the night in the dark to write that song?
Fun fact, all the songs on that album were written after like 2 a.m.
Interesting. Try that out if you're a songwriter.
Yeah. Well, that's how it works for me. Even when I was in college, the time I would work in the studio, Pro Suites, was between 2 and 6 a.m. So I don't know if it's just like that's the way it's wired. But there's no distractions. And Nightlight Rider just happening, that was like the first time where it all just came out. That opened the doors. That showed me that I could write songs and finish them.
Beautiful.
I like to work in the afternoon. I'm a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm an afternoon
Depends
guy.
on your meeting or something.
Yeah, we
Once
clash
the
a
sun
little bit
goes
there.
down, yeah. Once the sun goes down, I'm like, I can't be
You actually,
productive anymore.
So
That's
the-
daytime stuff.
well, that's with Nightlight Rider specifically. So the bridge, Nightlight Rider, it's a little bit brighter. Dave came up with when we were working on it, and that was in the afternoon.
it was in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you're
You never know. And I'm going to shout out my good friend Alex, Voodoo Van Jam.
Yeah.
Up and coming band. You're playing tons of shows. You're out there. You have eclectic music as far as you do vocals. You have female vocalists with violin, a new rockin' drummer.
Yeah.
And you have your Clay, right?
Clay, yeah,
Who's
Clay's
on guitar.
Ripper, yeah, our new guitarist
And
shreds.
you
man.
just have such a tight, eclectic band, and you really work on your performance too, and you're putting content out there and creating that fanaticism that I think is going to really shine and spotlight, and people will be inspired on Long Island. So
Yeah, check out Voodoo. These guys keep putting all the other artists on a pedestal here, but you got to check them out.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Yeah,
Sound Creation,
Station,
too.
Voodoo Van Jam.
Well,
These
thank you,
guys
man.
have done
Appreciate
more than any of us could ever ask for.
Shout out
so-
to my beautiful band. I love every person in my band. Love you guys. If you see this, I love you. All right.
all right, this is Listen Up Long Island.
All right. Peace.
See you soon.